Did Māori really cede their sovereignty in Te Tiriti o Waitangi? That is what the treaty says, but that's not what Te Tiriti says, and that's not what Māori understood. Confused? This is where the story gets really interesting. Let's explore the question, did Māori really cede their sovereignty in Te Tiriti o Waitangi? Kia ora e hoa mā, I'm Kiri Prentice and thank you for joining another episode in the Āhei series brought to you by Māori Minds. Be sure to watch the earlier videos if you haven't already and check the video descriptions for the downloadable worksheets. Now let's get ready to wānanga. What's coming up? He Whakaputanga recap, Preamble, Kāwanatanga, Property and Sovereignty, Article 1, Kāwanatanga and Sovereignty, Article 2, Tino Rangatiratanga and Property Rights, Most Māori sign Te Tiriti, What Cannot Be Ceded, Mistranslation, Kāwanatanga and Tino Rangatiratanga work, What the Waitangi Tribunal found, Did Māori really cede their sovereignty in Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and Wānanga Prompts. He Whakaputanga recap. In the previous two videos, we explored He Whakaputanga, the Declaration, and Te Whakamininga, the Confederation. If you haven't watched them already, I highly recommend checking out those videos as they provide important context to today's discussion. To recap, in 1835, Māori declared their independence and sovereignty in He Whakaputanga, the Declaration, in which they declared their kīngitanga, their sovereignty or kingship, their Rangatiratanga, their independence, authority, leadership or chieftainship, and their mana, their power, control and authority, over their lands and people under the title of Te Whakamininga, the Confederation. They made it clear that no group could create laws, whakarite ture, or govern, or establish Kāwanatanga governance on their lands unless appointed by them. King William IV formally recognised He Whakaputanga and therefore Aotearoa's independence in 1836. Preamble, Kāwanatanga, Property and Sovereignty. The preamble of Te Tiriti is often overlooked with people jumping straight to Articles 1, 2 and 3. Let's take a closer look. In Te Tiriti o Waitangi, Queen Victoria aimed to protect Māori chiefs, rangatira, and hapu, sub-tribes, preserving their rangatiratanga, their independence, their leadership or chiefly authority, and their lands. In the English translation of Te Tiriti, it specifically says to preserve their chieftainship and their lands. Kia tohungia kia rātou o rātou rangatiratanga me o rātou whenua. In the treaty, it said to protect their just rights and property. So notice the slight shift there. Rights and rangatiratanga aren't the same, and land and property don't carry the same meaning either, especially not for Māori. In the preamble, Queen Victoria aimed to establish Kāwanatanga government in New Zealand, particularly as the settler population grew. The English version of the treaty sought to assert the Queen's sovereign authority over the land and to create a civil government. In contrast, Te Tiriti emphasised the Queen's intent to establish the Kāwanatanga o te Kuini, the government of the Queen, while preserving Māori authority. The English translation of Te Tiriti said, Chiefs will agree to the Queen's government being established over all parts of this land and adjoining islands, and also because there are many of her subjects already living on this land and others yet to come. So the Queen desires to establish a government so that no evil will come to Māori and European living in a state of lawlessness. In the treaty it says, the Aborigines of New Zealand for the recognition of Her Majesty's sovereign authority over the whole or any part of those islands, Her Majesty therefore being desirous to establish a settled form of civil government with a view to avert the evil consequences which must result from the absence of the necessary laws and institutions alike to the native populations and to her subjects. Notice the difference. Both texts aim to establish a government, but in Te Tiriti the chiefs agree to the Queen's government, Kāwanatanga, not kīngitanga, not Rangatiratanga and not mana, and not the Queen's sovereignty over whole or any parts of those islands. Now, was the use of Kāwanatanga a mistake or a deliberate choice? If so, why? Technically, could the Queen govern a British colony on the other side of the world without her sovereign authority being recognised? Article 1, Kāwanatanga and Sovereignty. Article 1 of Te Tiriti makes a critical distinction. Māori rangatira of Te Whakamininga, the Confederation, and independent rangatira agreed to grant Kāwanatanga governmental governance to the Queen. However, in the treaty, it states that Māori would cede their sovereignty to the Queen. Article 1 of Te Tiriti doesn't mention kīngitanga, Rangatiratanga or mana. The English translation of Te Tiriti states, "The chiefs of the Confederation and all the chiefs who have not joined the Confederation give absolutely to the Queen of England forever the complete government over their land." In the treaty it says, "The chiefs of the Confederation of the United Tribes of New Zealand and the separate and independent chiefs who have not become members of the Confederation cede to Her Majesty the Queen of England absolutely and without reservation all rights and powers of sovereignty, which the said Confederation or individual chiefs respectively exercise or possess, and may be supposed to exercise or possess over their respective territories as the sole sovereigns thereof." Article 2, Tino Rangatiratanga and Property. Article 2 of Te Tiriti guarantees the protection of Māori Tino Rangatiratanga, their absolute chiefly authority, over their lands, villages and taonga, treasures. In the treaty, Māori retained their full, exclusive and undisturbed possession of their lands, forests, fisheries and properties. But Tino Rangatiratanga is more than just ownership of property, it's about authority and control. The definition of taonga has also been a point of contention over time. For example, in the Y150 claim, the New Zealand Māori Council argued that the radio spectrum was a modern-day taonga and that Māori should have a role in its management and allocation. The English translation of Te Tiriti states, "The Queen of England agrees to protect the chiefs, the sub-tribes and all the people of New Zealand in the unqualified exercise of their chieftainship over their lands, villages and all their treasures." In the treaty it says, "Her Majesty the Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes of New Zealand and to their respective families and the individuals thereof the full, exclusive and undisturbed possession of their lands and estates, forests, fisheries and other properties, which they may collectively or individually possess so long as it is their wish and desire to retain the same in their possession." Most Māori signed Te Tiriti. Here's a point. Around 39 rangatira signed the Waikato Manukau version of the Treaty of Waitangi, the English text, while over 500 signed Te Tiriti, the Te Reo Māori text, including wahine, women. Did those 39 rangatira who signed the Waikato Manukau version think that they were agreeing to something different from all the other rangatira? Did they think that they were ceding sovereignty? What cannot be ceded? Rangatiratanga and mana are closer to the Western concept of sovereignty than Kāwanatanga, which is a transliteration of government. These foundational Māori concepts are deeply tied to whakapapa, kingship, mana tangata, the mandate of the people, mana whenua, authority over the land, and mana atua, a spiritual power from the atua, are intrinsic to their role and cannot be simply handed over to a distant monarch who has no relationship to the land or people. Could Māori have really understood the idea of ceding sovereignty? Mistranslation. The translation of Te Tiriti has long been debated. Henry Williams, the missionary who was responsible for translating into Te Reo Māori He Whakaputanga and the treaty, was deeply familiar with the Māori concepts of Kāwanatanga, governance, Tino Rangatiratanga, the absolute chiefly authority, mana, the power, control and authority, and kīngitanga, kingship or sovereignty. Historians disagree on both his intent and ability to translate accurately. Moon and Fenton highlight Henry Williams' conflicts of interest as a landowner and his Church's direction to encourage Māori to cede sovereignty. Some argue that he mistranslated intentionally, while others see him as simply mistaken. Yet, he was highly trusted and regarded by Northland Māori. So, was he conflicted, deceitful, incompetent, or trustworthy? Learn more about this debate in Report 1 of the Te Paparahi o Te Raki Inquiry and Moon and Fenton's paper. James Busby, the official British resident from 1833, played a key role in drafting both He Whakaputanga and the treaty. He worked closely with Māori rangatira and understood their political structures. Did he know the difference between Kāwanatanga and sovereignty? Given their roles, expertise and experience, it seems unlikely to me that both Henry Williams and James Busby misunderstood the distinction between Kāwanatanga and sovereignty. If they had wanted Māori to cede their sovereignty, why didn't they use a term like Tino Rangatiratanga or mana, or even transliterations like kīngitanga or kīngitanga? The deliberate use of Kāwanatanga in Article 1 and Tino Rangatiratanga in Article 2 suggests an intentional distinction between governance and sovereignty rather than a mistranslation or oversight. So why did they choose the words that they chose? Was it an attempt to try to define the scope of the authority of Māori and the Crown? Were their intentions truly honourable or something else? Kāwanatanga works with Tino Rangatiratanga. At first glance, retaining Tino Rangatiratanga while ceding sovereignty seemed contradictory. However, this depends on the differing understandings of each concept, shaped by the historical and political contexts of the treaty's negotiation. It's clear that for Māori, the concepts of Kāwanatanga and Tino Rangatiratanga work well alongside each other and not against each other. Māori understood that they were agreeing to allow British governance, but without ceding their rangatiratanga, their authority over their lands and people. Historian Ned Fletcher argues that both the English and Te Reo Māori texts are reconcilable. Fletcher suggests that the treaty defined the Crown's governance role while respecting Māori authority over their lands and their self-determination. Why not check out Ned Fletcher's book to learn more? What the Waitangi Tribunal found. In Report 1 of the Te Paparahi o Te Raki inquiry, the Waitangi Tribunal concluded that the rangatira who signed Te Tiriti or Waitangi did not relinquish their sovereignty or give up their control of their people and their lands. They agreed to share power, allowing the governor to govern British settlers in New Zealand while protecting Māori interests. The rangatira saw themselves and the governor as equals with different roles, though the practical application of this would evolve. Britain's intention to gain sovereignty was not clearly communicated, and the rangatira agreed to Britain's control over British subjects for the protection of Māori. So did Māori cede their sovereignty? No. Te Tiriti does not mention ceding sovereignty or any equivalent like kīngitanga, Tino Rangatiratanga or mana. Most rangatira signed Te Tiriti. And do you think that the 39 rangatira who signed the English text thought that they were signing something different or ceding their sovereignty? The Waitangi Tribunal has found that Māori did not intend to cede their sovereignty. Rather, they agreed to share power with the Crown, allowing it to govern British subjects while safeguarding Māori authority and interests. Don't miss out on the next video. What are the treaty principles? Wānanga Prompts. Now here are 4 Wānanga Prompts for you to consider. Pause the video after I go through them and then decide which one you'll use to guide your wānanga today. And print the downloadable resources to support your wānanga if you haven't already. Wānanga Prompt 1, Distinguishing Texts. Why is it important to distinguish between Te Tiriti and the treaty, and what might be the consequences of ignoring these differences? Wānanga Prompt 2, 39 rangatira. How plausible is it that the 39 rangatira who signed the treaty thought that they were ceding their sovereignty to the Crown? Wānanga Prompt 3, Crown Policies. How do the Crown's current policies support or undermine Māori Tino Rangatiratanga, their absolute chiefly authority? Wānanga Prompt 4, what do you think? Do you think that Māori ceded their sovereignty when they signed Te Tiriti or the treaty? Why or why not? Ka kite anō.